Phrases and trees. By now you should know something about the nature of speech sounds, which are called phonemes and are made up of consonants and vowels. Phonemes go together to make up syllables, and syllables can form parts of morphemes. Remember that morphemes are the smallest unit of meaning in language. Morphemes get put together to make up words, and words get organized into phrases, which are groups of words, and ultimately sentences. Understanding how words get organized into larger groups is the study of syntax. Knowing something about syntax means we also have to know something about semantics, which is the study of meaning. You should have already learned one of the fundamental principles of semantics when you looked at the formation of complex words. So if you remember an example, unlockable, there is a structural ambiguity in that word. It has two meanings depending on which order you put its parts together. The principle of compositionality helps us to explain structural ambiguity. The principle of compositionality states that the meaning of a complex expression is determined by two things. One is the meaning of all the different parts. Second is the relationship between those parts. They have a hierarchical relationship to each other. So let's take an example. We have a sentence, the kitten naps on the puppy. We have another sentence, the puppy naps on the kitten. Both of these sentences have the same parts, and all the parts mean the same things. But they get put together in different ways, and those different relationships means we now have two separate sentences with different meanings, even though none of the parts have changed their meanings. So here is the kitten naps on the puppy, and the puppy naps on the kitten, which is quite a different situation. So we can say that if you know the meanings of all the different morphemes in an utterance, and you know what rules govern how we combine those, that means you can understand a complicated word or a new sentence that you've never heard before, like ethno-sectarian conflict, or there are puppies napping on kittens in most of the world's capitals. So most of the time, the principle of compositionality works very well. Sometimes we can't tell what a sentence means, and actually the principle of compositionality can explain why that happens too. Here we are backwards at structural ambiguity. So a complex utterance, that's an utterance that's made up of several parts, words or morphemes, can have two or more compositional meanings. And the meanings you get depends on how you built the tree or what order you arranged your parts in. Remember that a tree is like a description, a drawing of the way that relationships are ordered in a sentence or a word. So sometimes there's more than one grammatical tree that you can build for a particular string, just like with the unlockable example. So sentences can be structurally ambiguous as well as complex words. Here are two ambiguous sentences. Flying planes can be dangerous, and the chicken is ready to eat. The ambiguity in the first sentence comes because we can paraphrase it in two different ways. Flying planes can be dangerous can mean for someone to be flying planes can be a dangerous activity, where the implied subject of the flying, the person doing it, is actually not stated out loud. It's implied. It could just be anyone. But the important thing is that flying planes is an activity, a dangerous activity. Whereas in the other sentence, we could say, planes which are flying can be dangerous, for example, to people on the ground. And there, flying is no longer a verb, but it's a modifier. And the subject of the sentence is flying planes, planes which are flying. So you can see that the structure of these two sentences is quite different, and that relates to the ambiguity in meaning between the two. We have something similar with the chicken is ready to eat. What it boils down to is who is actually doing the eating. In one sentence, the chicken is about to do some eating. In the other interpretation, the chicken is about to be eaten. So when we use words to convey a particular meaning, we have to be careful and combine them together in the right way. The way we combine them determines their meanings, and the tree is just a way to represent that combination or that structure. So we have a phrase, which is one or more words that are grouped together in the branch of a tree. And those phrases, even more than words, relate to each other in ways that determine the overall meaning. So let's look at the main branches of a syntactic tree. For a sentence, there are two very important parts. There is one or more words that form a sentence's subject. A subject is always a noun or a noun phrase. And there are also one or more words that form a sentence's predicate. A predicate is usually a verb phrase. We call a noun phrase, we're going to notate NP, and a verb phrase VP. Those are the two most important parts of any sentence, the subject noun phrase and the predicate verb phrase. We can also have lots more words in a sentence, but usually most of those words are just modifying the subject noun phrase or the predicate verb phrase. They can be adjective phrases, adverbial phrases, or prepositional phrases. So these are the major types of phrases that you find in a sentence. And they're all named for the kinds of words that are most important in each phrase.